Hey everybody, Jason from Nocode V8. In this video, we're going to be using Trello automations. So we're going to use Trello automations to take information, but we're going to pass it outside of Trello. In this instance, we're going to pass it to Zapier, and then we're going to extract some information from the card. So once you have it in Zapier, you can pretty much do anything you want with it, pass it to any different systems. In this example, we're going to look at how we can take the information from the card, so an email address and a name, and add those to a Mailchimp subscribers list. So we're going to be covering Trello automations, Zapier webhooks, Zapier formatter, and we're just going to put all that together into one automation. So let's have a look at how we can do that. Okay, so let's have a look at the setup first of all then. So we are logged into Trello. This is the free version of Trello, and we have a very simple setup. So the premise of this is we're doing client onboarding, and we have different stages for the client onboarding until eventually they become a client. So we have stage 1, we have stage 2, and then we have done here. And so we have a couple of clients in stage 1, and we need to do some work with those clients, and then eventually we'll move them to stage 2 and then into done. And then what we want to do is create an automation when they move into done that's going to send that information out to Zapier. So let's just have a quick look at the setup. So what we have also is we have created cards from templates. So if you're not familiar with Trello templates, you can create a card. So you just click on the card, you call it anything you like, usually the name of the template, and then you can add some information into here. So you could add a label in there that it's going to be. So in this instance, we have Nocode VA as the label, and we have some information here. So we would have client email and just standard stuff that you're going to use for your template, maybe a checklist as well that you could add in there. So you'd add all that information in here, then down at the bottom here you'll say make template, and then you can make a template. So every time you click on here now and choose create from template, we have this information here. So we could just put in here Jason Martin and create card. What that's going to do then is just going to use our template. So we have all of our to-dos in here that we tick. We have the client email address that we can put in here. We have it labeled, and we have the name. So everything in there is just set up how we want it for this process. So if we just get rid of that one, and let's get rid of this one. And so we're going to start with this information. So if I just open this card here, for instance, we have the label, Nocode VA. The name of the card is the person, and we have the client's email address that we've put in here in the description. And then we just have some to-do lists here that we can tick off. So this is how we've set it up. And then when we move it into here, so eventually, we'd move it to stage 2, and then we'd move it into done. And when it's in done, we want to trigger some automations within Trello. So let's have a look at how we can set up the Trello automations next. Okay, so we've looked at how we can set up the list and the cards and things, and now we need to set up the automation. So Trello has its own inbuilt automations, and we're going to create an automation that's going to send that information out to Zapier. So let's have a look at how we can do that. So top right here, we click on automations. This used to be called Butler. I'm not sure if it still is, but maybe they've got rid of the name Butler. So we click on rules here because we want to create a rule, and what we want to do is create a rule when a card is moved to the done list. Okay, so let's click on rules here, and they have the Butler name here. So it's worth exploring these because there's lots of things you can do with inside Trello. When you move something to a card and trigger something else. So there's lots of things you can do, and it has some intelligence in it now as well. So if you're doing things frequently, the same kind of things, it will pop up and say, hey, you've done this 5 times. Do you want to automate this? So you can do that. So it's pretty clever, pretty good and worth looking at. But what we want to do is send information out of Trello. So we're going to create a rule. So we just click on create rule here. And then we're going to add a trigger. So what's going to trigger this? Well, the trigger is going to be, so it gives you some options down here. The trigger is going to be when a card is added to the done list, and let's say by anyone. So we have options, anyone except me. So we're going to say by anyone. So this is our trigger. So when that happens, we can do lots of different things. We can tick checklists, we can inform people, we can send information to Slack. What we want to do here is content. If we click on content, so again, you have options: rename the card, set the card's description, send an email, etc. Right at the bottom here, we have this get URL option. So what this is the ability to send or get HTTP requests from other sources. So the get will pull information from somewhere, so that's useful if you want to pull information from somewhere about the card and put that information on the card. In this instance, we want to post. So we want to post information to a URL with a payload. Okay, so the URL is going to be Zapier. So what we need to do next then is to create a webhook in Zapier, so we have a URL that we can paste into here, and then we can look at how we can configure it to send the information. Okay, so let's just jump over into Zapier then and have a look at setting up the webhook, and then we'll jump back into Trello and complete this automation. Okay, so now we're in Zapier and we've just clicked on create a new Zap, and we're looking for a trigger. So what's going to trigger this automation to run? And remember what we want to do, we want to create a webhook so that we can give to Trello to pass the information back to Zapier. So what we can do is we come in here and we type webhook, and we use webhooks by Zapier. We click on this and then choose the event. So what we want is a catch hook. So what this is it's a URL that's going to sit there listening for information that's going to be passed to it. Okay, so this is what we're going to do now. We click on catch hook and continue, and then what Zapier is going to do is just provide us with a URL. So it's going to say, hey, this is the URL, anything you pass to this I will listen for and I will process. Okay, so we can just click copy on here now, and we can head back over to Trello and finish configuring the automation in Trello. So let's jump back into Trello, and remember we're down here and we've chosen post to URL. So remember the rule is when we move a card to done, post the information to this address. So this is the one we just got from Zapier into here with the payload. So the payload is the information we want to pass. Okay, so what information from that card, from Trello, do we want to pass to the webhook? Now this can seem a little complicated, but I'm just going to paste some information in here. I'll explain how it works, and then I'll give you some links and things that you can use to find other information if you need to pass it. So let me just grab the information here, save some time typing it. I'm just going to paste this in here. So what I want to pass is the name of the card. Remember, the name of the card is the name of the client. So what I can do here is choose card name. So this is the label I'm going to pass to Zapier. And then what we have, just the way this is configured, this is JSON configuration. So we have an open brackets and a close brackets that encloses it all. And then basically we have card name with quotes and then a colon. And then we have this, which is the card name. So this is Trello's information that we can use to extract from the card name. Description. Again, this is the title we want to send to Zapier, and we want to get the value from the card's description. And again, the same. The card label is what we want to pass as the name, and then the value, the information, is card labels. So you can just, and everything just separated by a comma in here. So you can just go out and extract that, the information that you want in there. There is a link here. So all the information that's related to the Trello cards is all here, and there's lots of it. So depending on what you want to pass, maybe it's a username or a list or the board name, the time, all these kind of variables here. It will give you the information, what it's called, and then a bit of information about what it does. So it looks a little bit complicated. Once you get your head around it, it's not too bad. But that's it. We've finished. We've basically said pass this information. So pass the card name, the card description, and the card labels to this URL. That's it. We can then add this to our rule, and we can save it. We get some confetti there, and if we just go back now, we can see this is it here. So when a card is added to the list done by anyone, post some information to here, and this is the information we want: the card name, the description, and the card labels. So you'll see what that looks like in a minute when we go through and process this. So what we'll do now, we will simulate that. So we'll take a card and we'll move it into done, and that should pass some information to Zapier, and then we'll finish configuring Zapier. Okay, so we're back in Trello now. We've configured the Trello automation that's going to pass the information to Zapier. We've started the Zap, so we had to create the webhook so we could create the URL. So we've started that, and now we're going to simulate the actual process. So we're going to open this card here, and we're going to say, okay, we've done all of these tasks, and we're going to close this, and now we're going to skip stage 2 just for the demonstration, and we're going to move it across to done. So we've moved it across to done, and that should have run the automation. So what we can do now is just jump back to Zapier. We can continue. So we've done nothing else at this point, but now we can test, because there should be some information there when we click test trigger. There is. So what they've got is the card name. Remember, this is what we told it to pass, the description and the email address, and then we've got the card label. So we've got all the information we need from that there. So that's all working great. So we can continue here. So what we want to do now is we want to add this information to Mailchimp. So let's just go through this process first, and then I'll show you a couple of things we need to do before we can complete this. So we're going to add that client, that email address and the name of that client, to the subscriber list in Mailchimp. So we've chosen Mailchimp, we've chosen add or update subscriber, and we're just going to choose the account. So we're going to choose the audience. So this is just a test Mailchimp account I have. And what information do we need? So we need the subscriber email address. So if we click on here, we have the subscriber email address, but it's not just the email address, it's got all this other information in here as well. So this is not going to work. So what we need to do, if we look back at the information we were passed the name, and then we was passed the description, and part of the description is the email address. But we have client name and client email and all this information here. We just want to extract this bit. So what we can do now is we can use a formatter by Zapier to get that email address. So I'll show you how we can do that. So in the middle here, we're going to click on this, and we're going to choose format, and we're going to say we're working with text. So we're going to use the text formatter, and we're going to click next. And then it's asking us what information we want to, what we want to do. How do we want to transform the data? So down here is this handy little tool called extract email address. So we click on that. That's what we want to do, remember. And then it's saying, where's the information? So if we click here, we can say, well, the information is in this description. And so we select that, and then we can continue. And what Zapier is going to do now, if we test and review, it should come back with just the email address. So there you go. So it's clever enough to know what an email address looks like, what the format is, and it's going to extract that out of there. So let's just rename this step just to be clear. So extract email address, and we can continue here now. So if we go back to Mailchimp now, and the subscriber email address, well, we know it's not in the catch-up. We know we have this messy information here, but now we have step 2, which extracted the email address. So we can just click that there, and we have the email address. Okay, so we're nearly there. So the first name we want to, we can get from the catch-up. So remember, we've just got the name. The name of the card is the name. So although this is full name, and we'll put it in first name, we could do some work to extract that. We're not going to at this point, we're just going to continue there. So one other thing that would be useful as well is the we could put in here the tag in. So this is always useful in Mailchimp. So we can put in here, go to custom, and we can put no code VA, because anybody that comes into here is going to be no code VA. So we're just going to add a tag to them, and I'll show you in a minute. Let's just continue that. So that's ready to go. We're not going to test it yet because there's one more thing I want to do. So remember, in our Trello we have different labels on, so you can add labels to Trello. So it may be that the client is not, in this case, not no code VA. It might be a client for something else, or if you have training courses or something like that, then they may be on different training courses. So what we can do to ensure that we're only dealing with no code VA here, we're going to add a filter into here so that it will only process cards that are labeled as no code VA. So to do that, we're just going to use Zapier again. We're going to create a filter, and on here we're going to say only continue if, show all options here, if the card label, so card label is purple, no code VA. Purple, it's just extracting the color of the card, could be useful. So we're going to say only continue if text contains no code VA. So only continue if no code VA exists in the label. So that way, if we do anything else, so if we have cards for different businesses, different training courses, however you're trying to divide up your client onboarding, then you can make sure you filter and you only process the ones you want. So we have the catch up that's getting the information, only continue if this happens, extract the email, and then add to Mailchimp. So we're just going to test the Mailchimp bit now. So who is this? This is Kurt at nirvana.com. So we're going to continue here. We'll just jump across and look into the audience in Mailchimp, so we can watch this go in here. So this is the list that it's going to go in. If we jump back here now and say test action, we should see that information successfully go in. Okay, so it was successful. If we come back to here and just refresh our list in Mailchimp, so we can see here that, yeah, Kurt Nirvana has been added and no code VA is the tag. So once that's in there, that can then start triggering your Mailchimp automations for your marketing, you know, to send a welcome email, that kind of thing. So let's jump back now and we can turn this on. So we've finished this. Obviously we'd rename these a little bit more, and let's turn on the Zap because we have one more to do. So let's close that and let's go across to here. And so we have Jimi Hendrix here is the name of the card. This is the email address, and we're happy this is done. We're just going to drag this across here. So what we should see now, if we just look at Zap history, we should be able to see this happening. It's pretty quick, I think. So yeah, we can see this has run already and it's been successful. And if we fly across to here and refresh again, we should see Jimi Hendrix added to the Mailchimp list. Okay, there we go. So Jimmy's been added in as well. So that's all working. So just to recap then, we have an automation in here. When a card is passed to this list here, the automation is going to run and it's going to pass the information to this catch up here. We're going to verify that it's no code VA by looking at the label, and we're going to continue, and then we're going to extract the email address. So just to look on here, the email address is going to extract from the description. So in the description it's got all this information, but it's clever enough to be able to pull out the email address, and then it's going to add to Mailchimp, and then you could go off and do other things. You could add it to your CRM system, send emails, anything else. So once it's at this point, you've got the might of Zapier to then automate as much as you want. And then if you are putting it into Mailchimp, you then have all the automations in Mailchimp to start your marketing automations as well. So that's the full process. I hope that's useful. Let me know if you have any questions, and thank you as always for listening.